Welcome to A Word from the Wise, the podcast from Solwise, where we talk about products, news, or anything that you might be interested in within the industry. We do these on Spotify, Amazon Music, or anywhere where you get your podcast from. Or if you prefer to see us, you can scare yourself and go and watch us over on YouTube and enjoy today's podcast. Hello, welcome to A Word from the Wise. Today we are going to talk about marine antennas from Poynting. These are going to be more the general marine antennas. So we have done a high-end marine antennas podcast. So if you're interested in things for your ship or your ferry or something like that, then check out our other podcast. We'll put a link to that in the notes. This one is going to be about if you've got a narrow boat, a barge, a smaller yacht that you keep in a marina around the coast somewhere. It's not really likely to be for massive ocean going type boats.
At least not on its own.
Not on its own, no. It might be that you'd maybe have a couple of these on a larger yacht perhaps, but generally you'll find they might look at something different anyway. So we're going to go through those and then we'll see where that takes us. Mm-hmm. So we could start with inland boats to start with. Things like canal boats. We've done a lot with those over the years. But I wrote an article once for Narrowboat Monthly. My mum was so proud.
All right.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. That it must be about 15 years ago. I can't remember what that was. We didn't even do marine antennas then.
I wasn't even born then.
Shut up. So for something like that, tend to be similar to the motorhome stuff we've done and caravan stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the same antennas, because they're the kind of antennas that can be good on moving vehicles and they're often low profile. So stuff like the Mimo 3 range, the Pucks, they all work on them.
Yeah.
And even some antennas that aren't specifically designed as marine antennas, so stuff like the X-Pole 1s.
Yes, I've got an X-Pole 1 here, and this is one. We know we sell a lot of these to the canal boat people only because they contact us, don't they, when they hit a low bridge.
Yeah,
and they break it and they want a new cover for it. We don't sell spare covers, I'm afraid. So if you do break it on a low bridge, then you have to buy a new one. But thankfully, they're actually quite budget friendly. These aren't they? They're not dear.
You still want to be careful about where you mount it.
Yeah.
But, if you mount it somewhere good, then it can still work completely fine as well as it would.
Yeah.
Inland.
Yeah, and depending on how you're using it on your narrowboat, these can be mounted using suction cups through the back, or they can be permanently mounted. So if you are constantly going through low bridge areas, the suction cup option might actually be better, mightn't it? Or putting it on a pole that you can bring down. But so whilst this wouldn't be, it's not actually on our marine antenna page, it is something that inland waterway people do use, and it is IP65, so it's not like it's maybe we should put it on the marine page, but
it's
not
fairly resistant.
So that's the X-Pole 1. We do two versions of that, don't we? There's the 21 and the 41.
X21 is for 2x2 devices, so it's got 2 antennas embedded within it and 2 cables coming out. And then 4x4, as you can probably figure out, it's for the 4x4 routers, so it's got 4 cables coming out of it. So
you could use that with something like the Teltonic to Rotex 50, for instance, the 5G router. And these are 5G antennas, these 5G
as well, ready,
and if you're listening rather than watching, it is actually only it's quite a small antenna if you think about it. If you think, obviously I've got a lady's hand, and it's when I spread my hand out, if you're watching, but if you listen, if I spread my hand out, it's about that sort of size square. It's actually quite a neat antenna, isn't it? Comes with a 5-meter cable, and it's probably, I would say, our best selling antenna. Has been for a long time as well. If the 4G version was a massive seller, wasn't it?
Yeah, the old equivalent.
Yeah. So moving on from there, the ones that we do list as marine antennas, we've got your standard omnis where you'd maybe need 2. So we do a short omni and a long omni. I don't know if you want to tell us perhaps the difference between something like the 404, which is the short omni, and then we have the 291, the 493 and so on. They're the longer version.
Yeah, for them the difference is obviously they're similar in that they're single stream. So for a typical 2x2 4G router, which is probably about the standard nowadays, you want to get 2 of them.
Yeah. These little ones don't come with a cable either, do they? So
no, but that's often by design because some people can get cables of whatever length they need.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're good little antennas. The difference in length, well, there's no inherent difference in the length, but the different shape of the pattern within basically indicates how strong it's going to be. So obviously a lot of the taller ones are stronger than this one, but this one is still perfectly fine, fairly inexpensive model that you can just put up if you've got just not any particular big needs.
Yeah. And
just need a reliable mobile connection.
And they've still got that really good pointing quality feel about them, haven't they?
Yeah, it's inexpensive. It's not cheap at all.
Yeah, it doesn't feel cheap, does it? You think they're just feels like a quality plastic, for want of a better expression.
Yeah.
And it's shiny, where these ones are a bit more matte. I don't know if that particularly makes a difference, but the longer one is the matte look. But this one looks a bit wet paintish, doesn't it? But the smaller one, but still a high quality antenna. Those. So I remember rightly, we did some training for mounting antennas and so on, and when you're putting them on a boat, they have to be mounted a certain way apart, don't they, from each other?
Yeah, they want to be at least about 60 centimetres or so apart from each other.
Yeah. Is that so they don't cause interference to each other?
Basically, yeah, it's because they can interfere with each other's beams that they're sending out.
Yeah.
So you can put them fairly far apart if you want to.
So 60 is the minimum as opposed to the specific? I
don't know if there is a set maximum. You don't want them absurdly too far apart because the cables will be too long. And you want to keep the cables fairly short if possible. Yeah. And
I suppose if you're on a boat, you need to be mindful of rock, don't you, from the sea?
Yeah, well,
because
that's
the sea
why
is not flat.
All these antennas, they don't have too high of a gain.
Yeah.
I think the maximum probably gets to about 6 or so.
Yeah.
So if you go to a too high gain, and then if it's a marine antenna on a boat that's going to be out at sea and it's going to be rocking with waves, this beam it goes out, instead of being like this, if you're watching on video, it'd be closer to this. So
what Daniel's doing there is he's holding his hands like in a shape of a triangle. And how wide it's going to be is whether it's, I suppose, if it sees the shoreline, which is obviously where it's going to get the signal from.
If it's a really high gain antenna, even though you'd think, oh, it's high gain, so it's going to get a strong signal and
then it's a thinner signal, isn't it?
It's going to, if you're in a rocky water, or even not particularly rocky, just normal out at sea. Yeah. It's liable to just losing its ability to see the signal quite frequently. It can drop in and out and just not be very, very useful at all. Whereas a lower gain antenna, even though you'd think it's lower gain, so the signal's not as strong, it can reliably maintain that signal consistently, even if it's rocking about quite a lot.
Yeah, and these antennas really we're thinking about for your smaller yacht that's not going to be in the middle of the ocean. It's going to be nearer to get the signal from the coastline anyway, isn't it? Yeah. We did some years back. It was just pre-COVID. There was a yacht called Yacht Nova, and they tested a couple of these. So that would have been probably just at the beginning of your time with us. They bought themselves actually an Expol 1, and they found it was all right, but obviously, as we know, it's not full on marine grade, so it wasn't right it didn't have the salt water
resistance.
All that type of thing. And so they actually had one of these, which is the 402, but it was bigger than they wanted for their size of their yacht. However, they took it and they tried it, and they found it worked pretty well for them, is what they found. I think it might be worth us getting back in touch with them and seeing if something like a couple of these might be better off. It, you know, if they've still got Yacht Nova, that would be quite cool. To give a couple of these, the little ones, the 404 and the 403 a go, and see if that works better for their size of yacht and if they might get a better result from it. We'll put a link to their blog in the show notes, because I think that might be quite interesting for people to read, a real life experience of people on a yacht using these antennas.
I think they went round the UK.
They did a full tour around the UK, and then they checked in. There's a few pictures that they posted on Twitter which we retweeted and so on, but it was really interesting to watch their journey. But it's quite nice, I think, for people to see a real world review of these things. I mean, we can sit here and talk till we're blue in the face, but we work for them, and whilst we do think they're great antennas, it's whether people believe us or not, isn't it, really? But yeah, so we should maybe get in touch with them about these smaller ones and see if that does the job. They found this one was too long for their setup, however it did the job. They also commented that they liked the quality of it, and for want of a better expression, the marineness of it. So the fact that it had that saltwater protection and so on.
Yeah.
I think they quite liked the Expol 1 size, but it was too small. It was the previous model as well, it was only the 4G one, so it'd be interesting to see how things have changed for them. So moving on, so that's the short omnis and the long omnis. Then we have some flat omnis.
Yeah.
Just to add to the confusion. So there's a MIMO 3 and a MIMO 4. Now these we sell them into the caravan and motorhome type realms, I suppose, and what we find is that they sell very well in that market, don't they? But they are covered with all the marineness.
Yeah, the marine grade antennas.
They are marine grade antennas. So we've got the MIMO 3, which is almost like a shark fin, isn't it? We do these in black and white. The long ones we only do in white, but these flatter ones we do in black and white. We do these in a bunch of different levels.
There's a few different models within the range. So I believe, is this one a MIMO 3? It was good triple.
So this has got 5 antennas on it. Yeah.
So this is a 5-in-1. So it's got 2 mobile antennas within it, 2 Wi-Fi and 1 GPS, with a cable coming out for each one. Yeah. So they can be quite multi-purpose. They're not just mobile antennas, although there is one that is just mobile antenna, if that's all you're interested in.
From a marine point of view, though, the mounting is going to be a bit difficult, I think. If you've got, say, something on an inland waterway, on your barge or your narrowboat, it might not be so bad, because they often have a flat roof, don't they? But
yeah, this one is designed mainly to just be spigot mounted on top of like a flat surface going inside.
You wouldn't be able to put it on a mast, would you? It's not really ideal.
There is an option to have a magnetic mount to come with it. That's like a mount you can buy, but even that's not going to make it too much more versatile than the spigot. But then there is also the MIMO 4, which is very, very similar in terms of specs for the most part, but it is different. It's ultra wideband, so it's covering bands up to 6,000 megahertz, which is basically not even really in use at the moment. It's going to be in the future, so it's future-proofed.
So that's got a spigot mount as well.
It does, but it's a bit like the pucks that we were talking about, where it's got lots of different versatile mounting options. So along with the spigot mount and the magnetic mount and stuff like the MIMO 3 range, it's also got pole and wall and rail mounting.
And this is a bit bigger than the standard.
It's like a slightly bigger puck, but
yeah.
It's still smaller than the MIMO 3 range.
Well, when you say slightly,
well,
it's quite actually when you look. I know where you were coming from, but if you're watching, you'll see the difference.
Big antenna on its own. Just the pucks are just that small.
Yeah, quite teeny tiny, these little pucks, aren't they?
Yeah, pucks. Yeah. But yeah, obviously still not a big antenna. Still quite small.
I suppose when you look at that from a handprint point of view, yeah. I think the benefit of these though is that they could be pole mounted on your boat of whatever boat you've got. That would be much easier. You can put them on the mast or something like that. They all come with 5 metre cable. I think the smaller pups come with 2 metres, don't they?
Yeah.
These bigger ones are 5 metres. Have you got any thoughts on which routers that they could use them with? I mean, they come with a SMA connectors, don't they? So you could use them on any routers,
surely.
They
all come with SMA, so they all work with any of the routers we do, the Teltonica ones.
Yeah.
And I suppose it depends on what you're going to use them for. So the MIMO 4, like the MIMO 3 range I mentioned, you've got different varieties. Some come with just mobile antennas and mobile cables coming out of them, and then some also have Wi-Fi and GPS facilities.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what your router has and if you're planning to make use of it. So like you could have a Rutex 14 which has 4 mobile, I believe 2 Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
But if you're not planning to use Wi-Fi outside the boat coming from the antenna, you don't need to get the Wi-Fi side of things. You can just leave them unused and only use the mobile.
Yeah.
Or just get the version of this that only has mobile antennas.
I suppose a lot of it depends on what sort of marinas you go to.
Yeah.
And what the marinas offer. So if the marina does offer Wi-Fi, then having a Wi-Fi option there is worthwhile, isn't it?
Mm.
But if you're going to be slightly out at sea and just relying on the 4G, and it's kind of overkill really, isn't it? So it might actually just be a waste of money. Save you money and just get the one that does the 4G and 5G. So I think that's about it really then for the marine antennas. There's not really too much more to it. It's just about it being a different type of vehicle that it's on. But if anyone has any questions, by all means email us, give us a call, and we'll happily answer any questions that you might have. If anyone's got any ideas on other marine type antenna things we can discuss that, that we might not have thought about, then absolutely get in touch and we'll be happy to talk about that. So thank you very much and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for either watching or listening to today's podcast. If you've got any ideas, pop us an email over to sales@solwise.co.uk, and we will see you next time.